presents Mixed Bag, hosted by Tiffany.
Hey, welcome back. I'm here. It's been a long time. I got I got one special guest in Alex. So this is what we're doing tonight.
Okay.
That's the energy off the top, huh?
This is how we do it over here. This is how we do it over here. Let me welcome my esteemed guest, Jeremy Tache from FanDuel Sports, Lebatard, all around music guy. I heard, big fan, big fan. Say
A
hi
little
to
bit
the
here and there.
people.
Hey, it's awesome to be here. This is the best. You both are the best. I couldn't be happier to be here with you tonight. This is going to be a lot of fun.
And everybody knows Moose. Moose, you can say what's up if you want.
What's up if I want? Let's how we doing, everyone? I'm excited to be here. Appreciate the energy. Let's go.
All right. And if you are tuning in on YouTube, thank you so much. If you're tuning in on Twitch, do the subs, do all the likes, do all the things. It's been a long time since I said any of this, but you guys know, click, like, subscribe, donate, send, push, pull, sit-ups if you need to. So we're going to get right into this. Jeremy, I got to start here. And I'm going to start here. And once we get it, we're going to leave it here.
Okay.
Do you think now, looking back at what's transpired from last season up until now, do you think this season, Jimmy's, I guess this is his final season, we could just say it like that. Do you think it could have ended differently and we could have avoided a lot of the turmoil that we were all subjected to?
Yeah, it's funny, right? We were all subjected to because we were, right? We're the people
Yeah.
who felt the repercussions, whether that's the people covering the team or whether
Mhm.
that's the people consuming the product. Everyone sort of felt the shrapnel of how this all ended and how it all blew up. I think there are, I think both sides assume some responsibility in what went down here. I
Mhm.
think that there are multiple different ways in which it could have felt different, right?
Okay.
If you look at the organizational side, um, when the team decided that they weren't going to extend Jimmy,
Mhm.
then you probably, with hindsight being 2020, should have
Right.
traded Jimmy in the offseason.
Mhm.
Um, it was clear now that it should have been a choice one way or another. Either
Right.
extend him, or if you're not going to, get whatever value you can back. So even if that would have been a trade that would have been even less than than
Mhm.
what they ultimately got back, clearly it would have been better to start the season with whatever version of that team was, find
Right.
out who you are, and then either add or subtract at the deadline rather than making the Jimmy move around the deadline.
Right.
On the flip side,
Mhm.
the Heat looked at a player who they made more concessions for in terms of his personality than maybe any in the history of the franchise.
Mhm.
Someone who they had a great, like genuinely great relationship with, even when things were grating.
Right.
Competitive people brought the best out of each other, all the things that we all know, right?
Right.
And they looked at that human being and said, we all have respect for one another. There's just simply no way, even if he wants his money,
Right.
that genuine sabotage is headed our way, right? And they viewed it as we've done right by this guy.
Mhm.
We can squeeze one more year out of this in the weird intermediate stage that it's in. And why wouldn't they expect Jimmy to show up and play the best basketball of his career? He was in his last contract year.
Right.
So, as we all thought, the only way for him to get his money would be by balling out, showing he could play a bunch of games, and that would be the only way a team would move for him. Uh, Unfortunately for the Miami Heat, there were multiple teams, Golden State and Phoenix, desperate enough to say, no, no, we'll pay him even if he doesn't play this season,
Right.
because Golden State needed one last run with Steph. They saw where the value was at. Phoenix, we
Mhm.
obviously know the deal. Jimmy sabotaged it, right? Like we all saw what happened. But both sides in this conversation had their moment where they
Mhm.
could have helped things end differently. Jimmy didn't
Right.
need to make it this, right?
Right.
This dramatic, this upsetting, this detrimental to the rest of his teammates who I watched sort of develop a little bit of vitriol for for how this all went down at the end, not for the human being, but for the
Mhm.
teammate who let them down.
Right.
And obviously, like, the Heat could have operated differently too. So this is one of those things we'll look back at, I think, as one of the more fascinating endings for any superstar with any team, because I think as the CBA changes and
Mhm.
all of these things within the margins start to change, I
Right.
don't think you're going to see as many stars able to force their way out the way that he just did. This might be the end of sort of a dying breed, and it ended in about as catastrophic as a way as you could imagine, in terms of the relationship and in terms of the way things have
Right.
now gone for Miami.
Okay. I want to bring Moose in on this because it's funny. We've had similar conversations as to like how this ended, and you are exactly right. We've talked about how we definitely don't see the star movement in the future happening the way that it's been happening like the last 5 years. Moose, do you want to chime in on this?
Yeah, I don't want to repeat everything Jeremy said because I'm totally aligned with him. What I will push back on a tiny bit is I do give a little bit more blame on the Heat than I do Jimmy, because I feel the Heat somewhat forced Jimmy's hand. Now, with that being said, both sides ultimately shouldn't have let it get to this point. You know, no breakup is easy, and unfortunately the kids, in this case the fans, are the ones that felt all of that nastiness
Always.
because you
Right.
let it get into the season. And
Yeah.
that was always my issue with it.
Right.
Now, with that being said, back to this topic that we're talking on, I agreed. I don't think you're going to see the star trade happening that much more. I think maybe the next one you'll see is the Kevin Durant situation. And that one's a little bit unique because it's Kevin and Phoenix and all that. But in general, this new CBA, that trading a star, getting back 5 first-round picks,
Right.
swaps, I think teams are done with that. I think they have seen how detrimental it is to your future. I mean, it's playing out right now with Phoenix, you know? So I think everyone's kind of going to take a step back from that moving forward. And I think that's why it's so important for the Miami Heat to pivot now and go in a different direction in terms of the way that they're going to start to acquire talent, because it's not going to be the same formula that has worked for them in the last 10 years.
I will say that there are still, like, in my view, there will still be stars that move, but like the perfect example of where this is all going to get uncomfortable is like if the Celtics don't win the finals this year, how are they going to handle a Kristaps Porzingis on an expiring deal, a Drew
Right.
Holiday
Right.
who's got
Right.
multiple years left at
Right.
a high number,
Right.
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 and do they attach picks to, even though Drew Holiday's still a
Yeah.
productive player,
Mhm.
but do you, because of all those things in the margins and the need to keep your two
Right.
superstars at max deals and
Right.
whatever this new CBA is, are they
Mhm.
going to potentially move one or both of those guys and potentially have to attach picks to them to do it,
Right.
rather than the reverse, which has been the desperation of a team going, you
Mhm.
know what, we might be a Drew Holiday away. Let's go
Right.
get him
Right.
and give
Right.
up picks.
Right.
The leverage is all going to change
Right.
as a result. I think you'll still see player movement, but it'll be more because of the team's effort to get ahead on
Mm.
something
Right.
Mm.
rather than players
Right.
angrily forcing their way out.
Right. And this is just
Absolutely.
more it's more purposeful movement. It
Yes,
isn't just, "I'm not happy, I'm leaving." This is more so, how can we keep our house in check without losing everything?
that's right.
Oh, I definitely agree with that. I think, um, because I was one who kind of felt that during the summer, and I said to Moose, I said, "I as much as I love Jimmy, I would have liked to have seen him traded before the season started."
Sure.
Um, and you had the opportunity to roll in with the younger guys, and we could have let, um because where we are now, maybe we were there the first 2 months of the season,
That's right.
and then we found ourselves on somewhat of an up climb,
Mhm.
instead of we were where we were, which was in mud, but we've been in mud the last couple of years, but we've somehow, some way witchcraft our
Where
way
the
out
Heat
of it,
thrive, right? In the mud. That's the whole
right?
thing.
Exactly. So I was a little bit disappointed because I kind of, and I said to Moose, I said, I don't see this ending well. And it wasn't me being you know, being a Debbie Downer,
Mhm.
but more so just that I just had a
Understand
feeling that
who you're dealing with. Yeah,
right, this is
you're reading the room.
The only
right,
thing the only thing I would say, and gosh, I hate to be like heat apologist, right? Like
Mhm.
I
mhm,
know the the reputation I already get over a Lebatard show for all that. But yeah, see the
She
dogs
agrees.
are barking. Yeah, they're already upset about what I'm gonna say. But what I would say on that front is like imagine a world where the exact same trade happens this past offseason and the way that Heat Nation would have reacted
yeah,
to I'm sorry, we just traded Jimmy Butler for what? After
right,
what? Like,
right,
no one would have been okay with that, and
right,
they would have been making probably even more insulting comments toward Pat Riley in the front office than they are right now. Because the only reason they're okay with the Jimmy Butler move is because of the way that he sabotaged his own value, and
right,
that realistically was probably the type of value they were getting in return this summer anyway
right,
because of what it looked like around the rest of the league. So while we all say, "Oh, be preemptive, go ahead and
right,
make that move," it might look in the long run. We all just agreed on the same thing, which is if they had started this process a couple of months earlier in the season, it's
right,
better right now than what it feels like.
right,
But it wouldn't have felt good to move
right,
Jimmy Butler after getting injured in the playoffs, not seeing what that run could have been, and moving him for what essentially are role players. Like that would
yeah,
have felt crazy in the moment, nationally and locally. And so
right,
I can understand why they looked at it themselves and went, man, can't we just squeeze one more year out of this and then have us be in control, whether he picks up an option or not? It was a mistake, obviously. Like it turns
right,
out to be a mistake, but I kind of like you can fault it ever so slightly. I can't entirely fault that thought process
right.
given what the value would have been.
Go
If
ahead,
I may,
Moose.
my only
Mhm.
pushback on that, and obviously we'll never know because we're topping in hypotheticals now.
It's all
Right,
hypotheticals, yeah.
But my whole thing with trading him before the season, besides avoiding all the drama and all that, is not bringing that into the season. Like, I firmly believe part of the reason why Spo is having his worst coaching career, and I say we all know Spo is a first ballot Hall of Famer, but this has been a very trying and difficult year, and I think it's because of the Jimmy situation. This is
sure,
all new
yeah,
to Spo. It all affects the team, and
Mhm.
as you astutely said, Jeremy, it got to a point where the players developed this feeling towards Jimmy the player, not Jimmy the person. That wasn't what it was. But Jimmy, our teammate, you could have avoided all that and maybe had a better record. Now, would the trade have been the same thing? We don't know. I think the Heat really lucked out getting Davion Mitchell in this deal.
Mhm.
So we don't know what the return would have been and how it all played out. But I do think avoiding bringing in that drama and having that be at the center of your season for however many months it was, there is some benefit to that.
To cap this
it
part
is.
off because I know you guys want to get off of it. I'll tell you, I don't know if I've said this anywhere or not, but toward the end of the Jimmy run, right before he was going to be traded, the Heat
Mhm.
won. Um, the Heat, I think it might have even been the double overtime win against Orlando, right? Because that was when his new suspension started all over
Yes.
again.
Yes.
And and after the game, Kevin Love came into the locker room and he went and this isn't because I was there with like FanDuel Sports Network. This was other people were there too. Not many of us. But he came in and he went, Haywood Highsmith over me. And I'm not gonna throw the other player who then responded this way under the bus, but another prominent player on the team went, hell yeah, at this point. Like that's where things were at.
Wow.
That's where things were at.
So,
That's
eh,
telling.
so can I also say, I was also saying Haywood Highsmith over Jimmy.
She's been saying that for like 2 years now.
Yes, I am on the record.
I
I am
love it.
on Highsmith Island
Hell
alone, but
yeah.
I am
You're not
there.
alone. I love
That
that
is my
man.
guy.
I love that guy.
I root for him so hard.
He's the
But
best.
I wanna kind of look at what we just talked about and kind of move into the next topic and talk about what has surprised you about this season so far?
Oh man, I mean, where do we start? Uh, I mean, look, this 9-game losing streak is startling. It
Yeah.
just and it I get you can explain it given the emotional turmoil
Mhm.
of everything that it's been, the physical and emotional exhaustion, the place where Tyler and Bam have had to be all season long, again, physically and emotionally. Um, I would also say that I've been surprised by the amount of players on the team who have not grabbed roles and forced
Mhm.
Spo to keep them in the lineup. There
Mhm.
are several guys, and I don't want to throw
Right.
personally any individuals under the bus.
Mhm.
Anyone listening to this who's a big Heat fan can probably think of the names and know who I'm
Yep.
thinking of. Um, who I am shocked have not given the opportunity, kind of taken those opportunities and moved into the void,
Mhm.
right? I mean, Jimmy basically wasn't here all season. Like he showed
Right.
up sometimes, but
Right.
even when he was there, he wasn't there
Right.
outside of one game in Detroit. And to watch several different players who were sort of given the chance to go, okay, here's your shot. Whether you're a
Mhm.
veteran, whether you're a young guy, you're going
Right.
to get the
Right.
ball, you're going to have an opportunity to score, you're going to have an opportunity to play make. And to see so many guys, normally the Heat are so excellent at getting the most out of every single player every single season.
Mhm.
And so that part has been startling to me. It's been confounding to me to see the level of inconsistency from individuals. There has not
Right.
been like a single moment. You could take Bam and Tyler and look at their seasons and go, man, when one of you's playing well, the other isn't playing well. And
Right.
and that has basically been every single player on the team. Like one role player starts playing well, another one starts playing the worst basketball of their season. Another
Yep.
role player starts having a decent little run where they can contribute in small minutes, and a guy either gets hurt or
Right.
all of a
Right.
sudden forgets how to shoot. Like it's been so startling to see the inability to get these guys to blend and get the most out of themselves. And I'm really disappointed on that front in terms of a surprise. What I will say is a pleasant surprise. I'll be honest with you guys. Going into the season, I didn't expect to see a single competitive, like a single minute where it wasn't just emptying the bench at the end of the game where we
Mhm.
saw Kalel Ware.
Right.
Um, Kalel Ware, everything I heard going into the year was this guy is raw. He's working his ass off. He's so talented, all these things. But it was all the things that set up for you're not going to see this guy very much. Maybe you'll see him after the
Right.
All-Star break because they've turned him into something no different than we barely saw Bam minutes as a rookie. He backed up Hassan Whiteside. And
Right.
to watch Kalel grow into the player that he is right now, he's still making mistakes. He still has so much
Mhm.
room to grow offensively and defensively, particularly on the mental side of the game and learning the way that Spo and the rest of the coaching staff really want him to affect the game, when to take threes. It's not
Mhm.
always just when you're open. There are moments, there are runs, there are little things to learn, right? But to watch him turn into a guy that I mean, basically every Heat fan, even when Kevin Durant was available, was like, well, hold on, do we have to give up Khalil? And it's like, that's a pretty crazy thing to see happen before. So if we're looking for the pleasant surprise, the
Yeah.
really good thing, that has to be like number one with a bullet.
Jeremy, that's a great answer. And particularly because, myself and Frankie G over at Miami Heat Beat, we handle the draft stuff and over at Draft Beat. And we had that exact same reaction to the Kalel Ware pick. It was nothing on him personally. It's just we felt there
Mhm.
was going to be a really big, learning curve for him,
Yeah.
particularly on the defensive end. There were some things coming out from college that I'm not going to get into because we don't know if it was true or not. But
It
there
was all
were
motor, by the way. And like,
Right.
and
exactly,
to that,
exactly.
not to
Yes.
interrupt your train of thought, but it was
No,
all
no, no.
about
But thank you
motor.
for
That was what it was. And in talking to him before the season, like I talked to him right after he got drafted, and I asked him about that because I was like, "Hey, everybody says you don't try hard,"
yeah,
basically.
yeah.
And his response was like, "I'm just quiet. Like
Mm,
everybody wants me to be this big boisterous leader because I've
Mm.
always been the most talented guy on the teams I play on, but that's just not my personality."
yeah.
And I think that that is something that is really, really, really interesting because Mike Woodson loved him at Indiana. That's a
Mhm.
former NBA
Mhm.
coach, but yet
Spoke
that
very
stuff
highly of him.
still
Right.
stuck with him from Oregon and from being a McDonald's All-American as a guy that just kind of shows up and does his thing. But every single player to a man and the coaches that I've spoken to, they all are like, this guy works his ass off
Yeah.
and he's like a sponge. That's
Yeah,
the
he's
part.
bought
Like,
in from day one.
it's
Mhm.
great. And so that I will say, I apologize for interrupting your point, but like
No.
it might as well kind of capitalize off that. Like, it was
No.
everybody questioned his motor, and it's clear
Right.
that the kid plays hard.
And that was our initial fear with the pick. Also, just the whole timeline thing. I think it makes more sense now with Jimmy not being on the team, but that's neither here nor there. I think that was a great, yes, that's a great surprise. Not to bring it back down or deflate, but just to give the other side of the coin.
Yeah.
And you kind of took it out of my mouth a little bit. I'm not going to say the player's name either, but the consistent inconsistency from some of the guys that
Right.
you were hoping this was going to be their chance to really make a mark on the season and kind of get things going a little bit, particularly when Jimmy left.
Yeah.
We could say it's a sophomore slump and all that, but I do think that there is.
We're playing a game of Clue.
Right.
Yeah,
Right.
my whole thing is that I do think some of it is the whole season in general, but there is some serious looking in the mirror at like shots
Right.
not looking the same. There's little things that maybe now it's kind of searching, trying to find what it is, and it's just getting in his
Right.
head. But so that lack of consistency from not just him, but Jovic, other guys that you would like to see step up.
It's such a shame that Jovic hasn't gotten that
Right.
he
Right.
got hurt
Well,
when he did, because he would have
Yeah.
been such a key. I mean, like, obviously, look, he doesn't stop.
he's a
this-
catalyst.
But
Yeah.
him being there and having an opportunity to like handle the ball the way that he
Mhm.
would have,
Right.
it's such a shame for his development that he just hasn't gotten
Yep.
these reps. I don't know if it would have made a
Yep.
difference in how many games they win, but what a shame for a 21-year-old who had
I think
such
it would have helped.
on a silver platter opportunity,
Right.
and it stinks that he's out.
I think it helps. As far as wins and losses, I don't really know, but it helps with his
You're
development.
missing that
But
initiator.
but he's a catalyst.
Yeah.
He was a
Mhm.
catalyst for things that they would do. Not to keep talking about Haywood, but him and Haywood played very well together on the
Yep.
court. Yes, and the thing about it is that he had that spark, whereas to a lot of the players don't really run on the break. He was a one-man break.
Mhm.
Yeah.
He had the ability to get it off the glass, push it, and take it all the way to the basket.
Well, when you're a
Um,
team that struggles with half court, that's so
Right.
necessary, right? Like,
Right.
Exactly. So you're missing that, and I think that while the majority of the team has been up and down this year because of various things, I also just think that you 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 never were going to get the consistent play from anyone because no one's there. Everyone's in and out. Everyone's in and out. So if you say Bam and Tyler have played the most games this season, but that's just two guys out of your starting lineup. So
Mhm.
there is no consistency. No one has had the opportunity to say, this is the 5 for 35 games.
oh yeah. I mean, God, even since Andrew Wiggins got here, he's played half the games. Like,
Yeah.
there is no level of consistency. And look, the entire Jimmy era was marked by that, right? Like,
Right.
That's what I
Right.
was going to say.
even-
That's a recurring theme
Yeah.
in the
Even a
last
year-
5 years.
Yeah,
Yeah.
even when they were a 1 seed, right? Like, Bam missed like what 15 games, and Omer
Mhm.
Yurtseven became a superstar for like had a 10 straight double doubles
Yep.
or something
Yurt.
like that. What a fun time!
Yep.
But like Jimmy would miss games, and remember, they go on their run. It's because with 3 games left in the season, they finally figured out Max Strus should be starting over Duncan Robinson. Like, these things all happened late, but it was because they had an ability to grow together as a group.
Right.
And you almost like you forget the fact that Max and Caleb and Gabe were actually there before they became the
Yep.
guys that they were. And
They were on the
so
bubble
I know,
team.
hey, look, a guy that we're all gonna like, you're gonna laugh when I say it, right? But like, not having Drew Smith has really impacted this team.
Yeah.
Like, not having Drew Smith makes a huge difference. This is a guy who's been with the organization for several years, is a great, not good, great on-ball defender,
Yep.
And arguably, in my view, actually better than Davion Mitchell because he gets beat off the dribble less. Because Davion's more aggressive. And so he goes over those screens and he draws fouls, and there's differences in their game. But Davion will get beat off the dribble sometimes because of how aggressive he is.
Right.
And when Khalil Ware's not on the floor and they don't have a shot blocker to be able to kind of make up for some of those things, that can end up hurting you on some possessions.
Yep.
Drew is not that dude. Like, Drew does that, and he had a mastery of the offense. He might not have been the most skilled offensive player, but he
Right.
understood every single thing that Spo wants him to do. Why? Because just like Gabe, it was a couple of years of development within the program before actually getting those reps on the court. And so to lose not just Niko Jovic as a half court and full court ball handler, but also Drew Smith as a half court and full court ball handler, that's going to impact Tyler Hero's play as someone who's been more productive off ball. Like, they're a team that for years, even when they were going to the finals, had to do just about everything right to get there, right? They had to do everything right to be a winning team. They've never been that much more talented than everybody else. And so when now, I mean, particularly when you're then not having Jimmy at his best or not having him at all, all of the pieces need to
Now
work
Drew
together for
Smith
you to
is
win.
Drew Smith.
These guys matter, right?
Right.
And now,
No, you're right.
but now
You're
these guys make a difference, right?
Right.
Every single player, you know, the drop off from one to the next. I mean, God, some Drew Smith minutes would have been a few less minutes of somebody else playing point guard.
Yep.
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 No, you're not
and
wrong.
I think, and then you look at the injury to Drew, you look at the injury to Nikki, as I love to call him. Now you're asking a couple of other guys to do other things that may not be in their wheelhouse.
That's exactly
as to when we had, you know, Gabe, Max, Caleb, even Kyle, we need you to do X, Y, and Z.
Had a role.
They had a role, and the one thing they always could be was stout on defense. Whether it was because of height, girth, width, speed, they had the little intangibles already. But like you said, outside of Kyle, they were in the system. So they were able to figure things out and take a year or two to kind of grow with everybody.
Yeah,
now
Kyle's
we're
a genius,
asking,
you know, like we can give him
he's
this
a
shit.
genius.
Basketball genius, right?
Yep.
Like, and I know G is somewhere listening right now, happy that I just said it, but like Kyle was a basketball genius. You could just insert and know that he was going to be able to be a part of a system. And there are other players who have now joined the roster who are not, maybe might be more talented in some respects, but are not that.
You're right.
Just consistently hitting the under. Yeah.
I agree. I think, and I think that, like, we only have a few games left. Quickly, what do you think? What would you like to see? We have what, 13 games? I think we have 13, 14 games left.
Would love to see, like, down the stretch here, both Bam and Tyler continue to play like they played the other night. If you can see both of them playing well in just about every game down the stretch and together, not just Bam one night, Tyler the other night, Bam one night, Tyler the other night, like both of those guys playing well off of each other and together, that'd be great. I'd also like to see some minutes from some of these young dudes. Like, it's gotten to that point, right? And I know here's the difficulty, right? Given where they are in the standings, given the fact that they are technically going to be playing to get to the postseason, there is no world in which Eric Spoelstra is not going to try his damnedest to win those playing games.
Of course,
And
yes.
in turn, his view, understandably, might be, nah, man, I got to figure out what my best 8 guys are to try to go win a couple of games in a few weeks. And I couldn't blame him if that's the direction he decides to go. But, like, would I love to see Kashad Johnson play a couple of minutes here and there? Yeah, I would. Like, would I love to see more and more of Pella? Yeah, I would. Would I love to see even Josh Christopher maybe get some minutes in a game here or there? Yeah. Like, I'd love to know what we got. You know, it'd be cool to know. Down the stretch, final 13 games, you're playing some games against some teams that don't care either. Does that actually give you analysis, or is it more like September baseball where none of that really indicates what these guys are going to be like the
Right.
following season. Maybe.
Mm,
But at the same time, getting real NBA game reps in the second quarter as opposed to the fourth quarter when it's a 40-point game, it means something. It gets you
right.
off on the right foot, and it allows you to kind of move forward. So I would love to see a little bit of those young guys if possible. I can't blame the Heat if that's not the direction that they go because of the position that they're in. But priority number one is making sure that Bam and Tyler leave this season knowing it was exhausting, knowing it was a shit year, like
Mhm.
considering what they wanted, but feeling good about themselves, not only individually, but as a duo moving forward as the leaders of this team going into next year. So whoever they do acquire can either be, their co-star going into next season, or they can step up and know like, hey, all right, we've now got these 4 or 5 guys that are talented
Right.
that we can
Right.
lead and move forward.
Right. And that kind of goes into what my final question was as to with the landscape of the East, how do we see them getting themselves back into contention?
Don't
Man.
go to me. Don't go to me.
I'm not going to you.
Don't go to me.
So, okay, so there's a couple of ways to look at this, right?
Okay.
There's tweaking the back end of the rotation,
Mhm.
making decisions on some players who you've now decided are not up to snuff as role players on what this present roster is constructed as, and just making kind of minor tweaks there and
Okay.
hoping that with an off season to kind of mentally and physically recover, that a combination of Tyler, Bam, Wiggins, Mitchell, and whoever else he got is better than you were right now. I think if we're talking about getting into real contention, I mean, the obvious answer sitting right out there is Kevin Durant. To me, I believe that Kevin Durant's game offensively is quite literally the perfect complement to
Mhm.
what it is that both Bam Adebayo and Tyler Hero do. I don't think that there is a better example of someone that can bring the most out of both of those players. Obviously, you still need a true point guard to
Mhm.
operate within all of that, but I don't think that there is a better complement to those two guys that can allow you to get a read on who they are. And that goes for demeanor as well.
Mm.
Kevin is not some big boisterous guy. He is the opposite of Jimmy Butler when it comes to all of that.
Very much
And
so.
Yeah.
those two guys, I think, would love to have a mature, calm presence around them that is just there to hoop and
Yeah.
let Bam continue to be the leader of that locker room and step in and go, I've been here, I've done that. I'm not going to panic if we lose some games. I'm here to help you guys get better. I'm here to end my career in a really fun way. It's the obvious answer, but is Phoenix going to ask for the same thing they did at the deadline, which was basically every single piece in your cupboard?
Mhm.
Or are they going to ask for, and I don't love floating guys' names, but let's say Andrew Wiggins, either Duncan or Terry, and a few draft picks, or maybe a young guy and a couple of draft picks.
Right.
Mhm.
That is a more reasonable deal. That's the type of deal that you make for a 37-year-old wing.
Right.
Not everything you got left.
Right.
But we say that. Let's see how these final
Let's
13
see.
games go. Because it depending on how some of these guys play, like I
Mhm.
think that this final stretch, this organization is not happy with how this
Mhm.
has gone.
Right. Right.
And seeing who fights to the bitter end
Mhm.
is going to genuinely make an impact on how the front office views them moving forward.
Right. I agree. So before we wrap this up, I have a couple of things I want to say. But before that, fighting to the bitter end, deliver a message to Haywood Highsmith. Tell him he's taking the wrong angles when he's in transition defense. He needs to square his shoulders and ask him if his leg is okay because he's
Okay.
leaning.
Okay, I got you
You
for
got
sure.
it?
I'm gonna tell
That's
him, yeah.
that's a note that I gave Tiff, by the way.
That's the
I
relationship
told
we
I
have for
told
sure.
her I told her before this started. I was like, you know what? I was watching
Yeah.
Haywood last night.
I'm
I
on
saw
that
something.
island alone. You know I'm on that island alone.
Hey, I love H. To me, the thing is like H is the perfect 8th or ninth guy on your team. It's just the fact that he's
He's
overexposed.
having to do too
It's the
much.
fact that he's the
Right,
8th or ninth guy.
He
right, right,
listen, he's a
right.
good guy to come in, shoot a couple of
He's
threes.
a role player. Like, I think
Exactly.
Haywood can be a
He's a
role
role
player
player.
on
An
a
elite role
championship team.
player.
Yes.
He's a
Yes.
Yes.
He's having to
great
do
role
too
player,
much.
but he's being asked to do far
Yes.
more than he should. Far
Yes.
more than he should.
But I need him to fix that transition defense. Okay, so now that we've done that, before I get to this, I need you to finish this line, Jeremy. And if
Oh,
you
boy.
cannot, we
Oh,
have a
no.
problem. Are you ready?
At all.
Here goes. Because I want to be Jack and Diane.
I want everyone to understand. That's my
Yes.
own song.
That is your song.
You listen to my music.
Yes, I did.
Ah, Tiffany, thank you.
Yes.
That's
Yes.
crazy. I did
Yeah,
not
I
expect that at
know.
all.
Gonna say, I
Yes.
don't know that one.
Yes,
That's
Jeremy. Just really quickly. Just
Wow.
really quickly. Give
Yeah.
a blurb about it. Just really quickly.
That's crazy. Yeah. Okay. So when I was in college, I did like the singer-songwriter thing. It's actually it's funny because I met my my now wife at an open mic night at at the Honors College at UCF because that's what I was doing. I was like playing open mic nights and stuff as the singer-songwriter thing. And I used to write like a lot. I would just try to write like fun little piano pop songs. And so one of them was called That Kind of Love. I wrote it based off of like not even necessarily my own experiences, but my friends and all these different things. And me and my buddy Grant actually like shot a music video for it because we had the time. We just graduated college and I was unemployed and I was like, screw it. And so I went into a studio and recorded the song and filmed this video. And it was like the time of my life. Like I'm so proud of it. And it's funny listening back to it now because I was like 22. And I'm singing about like wanting to be something by 25, which is hilarious because I'm about to be 30. But it was a fun song and it's funny. I go back with a lot of songs that I've written and go like, I would tweak that lyric now. But it's like, yeah, dude, you wrote it when you were 19. Like, of
Right.
course you would maybe approach that differently.
Yeah.
So there's this, it's a fun kind of time capsule for me. So thank you for shouting it
Yeah.
out. There's a
Yeah.
video on YouTube.
Yes.
That's awesome.
And you can find the song on Apple Music, everybody.
Yeah, you can.
That Kind of Love. So really quickly, because I know you love music and I got Moose here. So I don't know if you are an NSYNC kind of guy, Backstreet Boys,
In sync
but
all the way.
Moose,
No.
Moose has a problem.
Oh, I
Go.
don't have a problem. I just wanted to ask him why he thinks the 2020 experience was it the 2020 experience that you said was JT's best album?
Okay. That's okay.
You did say that though, right?
Okay,
that's my issue with you.
You're
really.
right. It's incorrect. That's an incorrect
Yeah.
take, and I would like to
Okay,
formally
cool.
apologize to everyone for it.
We're good. Jared Bear.
But
Nice.
that said, it's so much better than people give it credit for.
I agree.
That is a great album. Like,
It's a
not good.
phenomenal album.
That's a great album.
It should have been released as a double album. I think that's where the criticism is.
I think that's
people
totally fair.
People look at the second one that came out and they were like, well, it doesn't have as many hits as the first. But had they come out together, it's a beautiful package.
Or if you would like put out 14 of the 23 songs. This is the same issue that I have. It's the same issue that I have with the Tortured Poets Department by Taylor Swift. Like, that did not need to be a 30-song album. If that was a 12-song album, that would have been maybe her best album. But it's mediocre in comparison to some of the others because it's like Scorsese, like there's no editor.
So where do you power rank JT's albums, if I may?
It's Future Sex Love Sounds, Justified, 2020 experience.
Oh.
Even with
I got Justified #1. I think Justified is timeless. It goes through every decade, whereas the Future Sex Love sounds like 2010.
Yeah,
which is great, but it stays there.
But Future Sex Love Sounds, it inspired the next decade of music. Like, that's the difference to me, is that it had a cultural impact in the way that it changed pop music. Like, even for that matter, the way like Lady Gaga made her music, I think it's influenced by Future Sex Love Sounds. Like, the production on that record, the interludes, I've always been blown away by the cohesiveness of that record. And there are some better individual songs that you're right are timeless. Senorita is a timeless song. Like I Love You is a timeless song. Like those songs off Justified are amazing. I can't believe we're talking about Justin Timberlake in the year 2025.
Right.
But
I can't believe
Yeah.
we would talk about anything else.
yeah, but the fact that like on Future Sex Love Sounds, like What Goes Around Comes Around and My Love are two of the best songs of that genre that have ever been made. Like, and What Goes Around Comes Around,
Interesting.
What Goes Around Comes Around, like, when's the last time you listened to all like 9 minutes of what that shit is? It's
Probably like last week in my
perfect.
car.
Yeah, right. It's perfect. Like it's still perfect. And I remember being a kid, he performed What Goes Around Comes Around on an award show. And I don't remember what award show. It could have been the Grammys. It could have been the VMAs. I couldn't tell you. And maybe someone will have to send me tweet me the link after this. It like was life-changing. I remember watching it and just being like, that's the coolest thing I've ever seen. He was sitting at the piano. There was this orchestra. And I was like, that's everything I want to do. Like it was just the coolest. And yeah, it's why in high school when I was doing the singer-songwriter thing, I did indeed do branding as the other JT.
Whoa.
Oh, didn't know that.
Oh.
I really did.
Listen, and with all this being said, this doesn't add up to anything from John Cougar Mellencamp. That's all I'm saying.
On Cougar Mellencamp.
Cougs.
I'm a Midwesterner.
All right, I'll take it. Hey, I'll take it. I want to be Jack and Diane.
Yeah. And Moose just wants to be Jack.
Or Diane.